Shockwaves are spreading through the anti-fascist movement at the discovery that anti-fascist activists are, in fact, fascists. Antifa leader Thugly Dirtbag was the first to get the startling news. In a YouTube video released from an undisclosed location, he said, quote, "There I was, minding my own business, wearing a balaclava while beating up a housewife in a MAGA hat, when I caught sight of myself in a store window and I was like, whoa, who's the real fascist here? A peaceful woman I disagree with or the masked stormtrooper beating her unconscious? I just slapped my forehead and said, oh, I get it. The real fascist is me. Man, you could have knocked me over with a feather. I guess now I'll have to punch myself in the face. Ha ha," unquote. Professor Evelyn Screamy of NYU's Manipulative Psychopathology Department spoke to reporters outside her room at the Home for the Terminally Misguided. Professor Screamy said, quote, "All these years I've been telling my students that there were fascists infiltrating the university, and now it turns out I was right. There were, and I was one of them. Who could have seen that coming? It was like 1 second I was in a classroom explaining how fascists marshaled government violence to silence their opposition, and the next second I'm standing out on the sidewalk shrieking that the police should beat up a group of peaceful Trump supporters. Well, I just slapped my forehead and I was like, hey kids, look at the crazy fascist. It's me," unquote. By the way, it was later revealed that Miss Screamy was not an NYU professor, but a lobster porn artist, whereupon NYU hired her to head up their department of lobster porn. News that anti-fascist leftism is actually fascist leftism has reached even the centers of ideological corruption and distortion. At the New York Times, a former newspaper, op-ed columnist Googly Hysteric told PBS anchorwoman Googly Hysteric, no relation, quote, "For a long time now, I've been labeling everyone who disagreed with me as Hitler. He's Hitler, she's Hitler, everyone was Hitler. Then suddenly I'm in my shrink's office and I'm ticking off the Hitler checklist on my fingers, saying he demonized his opponents, encouraged violence in his adherents, and supported policies that would result in 6 million Jews being killed. And I was like, wait a minute, that's me. It was very liberating because now I don't have to be afraid of Hitler anymore because he's just the friendly face in the mirror," unquote. Anti-fascist leaders are now trying to adjust to the new normal of being fascist leaders with various strategies. Sources within the movement told the Daily Wire, quote, "We recently held a meeting and there were a lot of different suggestions. Some people wanted to simply drop the name Antifa and rename ourselves Fa. Some thought maybe we should stop beating people up and setting fires every time someone disagreed with us. One guy even suggested we read the Constitution and find out what these conservatives are talking about. But of course, when he said that, we beat him unconscious with batons and set the room on fire," unquote. Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show. I feel hunky-dunky, life is singing hunky-dunky-doo. Ship-shaped ipsy-topsy, the world is zippity-zing. It's a wonderful day, hurrah, hooray, it makes me want to sing. Oh, hurrah, hooray! Oh, hooray, hurrah! All right, hooray, hurrah! Just one more week till the Super Bowl. Oh, wait. Oh, I missed it. Oh, no. What a great game. And we have Heisman Trophy winning cultural correspondent Michael Knowles is here, three-time MVP, Super Bowl MVP himself. We'll discuss the insane ads that were on the Super Bowl during one of the greatest games ever played. And we'll talk a little bit more about the game. Knowles will be with us after the break. So if you're watching on Facebook and YouTube, prepare to come to the Daily Wire and shell out your $8 to subscribe. For free, you can just listen to the show, but you could watch the show if you just shell out your lousy $8. Now, you may have noticed we had a little glitch in the opening song, and that's because when we went out to hire people here to start this show, we just very carefully stood by the freeway with a hand-lettered cardboard sign saying, would you like to put on a podcast? But you don't have to do that. You can go to ZipRecruiter.com and get actual competent people who know what they're doing. You know, now that America's going to be all America's going to be all great again and stuff, you're going to need to hire people, and posting your job in just one place isn't enough to find quality candidates. If you want to find the perfect hire, you need to post your job on all the top job sites, and now you can with ZipRecruiter. You can jumpstart your hiring for 2017 and post your job to 200 plus job sites, including social media networks like Facebook and Twitter, all with a single click. You can find candidates in any city or industry nationwide. Just post once and watch your qualified candidates roll into ZipRecruiter's easy-to-use interface. There's no juggling emails or calls to your office. Quickly screen the candidates, rate them, and hire the right person fast. Find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used by over 1 million businesses. And I don't even know why I read these ads when you can just, why do I have to convince you when they're letting you try the thing for free? Right now, my listeners can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free by going to ZipRecruiter.com/dailywire. That's ZipRecruiter.com/dailywire. One more time to try it for free. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/dailywire. Do not let what has happened to this show happen to your workplace. Go to ZipRecruiter.com. What a game. What a game. I mean, that was one of the most unbelievable Super Bowl games in history. Julian Edelman, that was a historic catch. I mean, I have seen amazing catches, but that was an historic catch. And it was very hard not to see, obviously everybody was yelling at Brady for being a friend of Trump's. It was hard not to see a sort of allegory of Trump's election victory. But for me, the reason I love everyone hates the Patriots. The reason I love the Patriots is they are America. I mean, you look at Tom Brady and his wife, Giselle, is that how to pronounce his wife's name? They're beautiful, they're unbeatable, a little bit corrupt, but you can't hate them because they just keep winning and winning. They're like a metaphor for America. I mean, that's what it was. It was very uplifting to watch that happen. Sorry about Atlanta. I mean, Tom Brady ended last season deflating a couple of footballs and ended this season deflating an entire city. So it was tough. Atlanta is a great, great team, and all I could say when I was looking at their faces, that after that just absolutely debilitating loss was, at least you lost to the best in the business, So, and we're going to discuss the ads. Our Heisman Trophy winning cultural correspondent Michael Knowles, we made him watch the ads in the halftime show, so I didn't have to, basically, because I was too busy eating. And but we will discuss that in a little while. First, we have to talk about Donald Trump. Donald Trump, Putin, his mouth. So Bill O'Reilly, before the Super Bowl, Bill O'Reilly did an interview with the president, and the president had this one moment that really did start a lot of controversy. Here he was, this is cut number one.
Do you respect Putin?
I do respect him.
Do you? Why?
I respect a lot of people, but that doesn't mean I'm going to get along with him. He's a leader of his country. I say it's better to get along with Russia than not. And if Russia helps us in the fight against ISIS, which is a major fight, and Islamic terrorism all over the world,
right?
Major fight, that's a good thing. Will I get along with him? I have no idea. It's very
He's a
possible
killer,
I
though.
won't.
Putin's a killer.
A lot of killers. You got a lot of killers. Why, you think our country's so innocent? You think our country's so innocent?
I don't know of any government leaders that are killers in America.
Well, take a look at what we've done, too. We've made a lot of mistakes. I've been against the war in Iraq from the beginning.
Yeah, mistakes are different than...
A lot of mistakes, okay, but a lot of people were killed. So a lot of killers around, believe me.
Okay. So let me tell you why I think this stinks, why I don't think it stinks as much as it might stink, but why I really do think it does represent a problem for President Donald. The real problem with this is the ignorance behind it. See, I think what Trump is doing, I really do think what he's doing is you can't call a man a killer and then sit down and talk with him, and I think if he were a typical statesman, what he might have said was, look, I have to sit down with this guy. I'm going to leave the name calling to you, but I'm going to sit down with him and talk, and it would be a good thing if we can get together. Let us start off on a good foot. The thing that really worries me when he says stuff like this is that worries me that he believes them. Here is Senator Ben Sasse, who has just been an excellent, excellent spokesman for the conservative point of view. Let's listen to his response, because it is 100% accurate.
Let's be clear. Has the U.S. ever made any mistakes? Of course. Is the U.S. at all like Putin's regime? Not at all. The U.S. affirms freedom of speech. Putin is no friend of freedom of speech. Putin is an enemy of freedom of religion. The U.S. celebrates freedom of religion. Putin is an enemy of the free press. The U.S. celebrates free press. Putin is an enemy of political dissent. The U.S. celebrates political dissent and the right for people to argue free from violence about places where our ideas are in conflict. There is no moral equivalency between the United States of America, the greatest freedom-loving nation in the history of the world, and the murderous thugs that are in Putin's defense of his cronyism.
You know, this is so true, and it has been a problem for a long time on both the left and the right. I mean, I remember Clint Eastwood, one of my favorite filmmakers. He made one of my own books into a movie, True Crime. You know, I owe him a lot, and he is one of the great artists. But he made that movie about Iwo Jima, where he showed Americans committing atrocities, killing prisoners, and all this stuff, as if that were the same as the massive program of atrocity that the Japanese did during the war, and as if we were fighting for the same things. It matters what you're fighting for. And what Ben Sasse is pointing out is that our country actually stands for something that is good, and Russia has never stood for that ever. It has never stood for that ever. So not only does Putin, poison his political enemies with stick jamming radiation into them so that they die a slow, painful death, and I don't see, Marco Rubio doing that to Nancy Pelosi. I know we may have dreams, but that's that's not what happens, and it's not what any of us really want to happen. That's not the country we want to be living in, and so it's a real problem with Trump, because it suggests to us that maybe he really thinks that's true. In the same way when he attacked Ted Cruz's father, saying, what was he doing with Lee Harvey Oswald? Because he read about it in that stupid paper. What's the name of that paper? The New York, not the New York. It's not the Examiner. What's the name of the paper? That's not the Inquisitor. It's the Inquirer. Got it. It's a room full of people. See, if you go to ZipRecruiter, this doesn't happen. The Inquirer, he thinks the Inquirer is a respectable newspaper. And I think that is a real problem. Now, here's Mike Pence, the grown-up in the room. He goes on TV, the morning interview shows, and he tries to clean it up. This is cut number 6.
I simply don't accept that there was any moral equivalency in the president's comments. Look, President Trump, throughout his life, his campaign, and in this administration, has never hesitated to be critical of government policies by the United States in the past. But there was no moral equivalency. What you heard there was a determination to attempt to deal with the world as it is, to start afresh with Putin and to start afresh with Russia. Look, we face very, very serious dangers in the world.
But that's why
the United States, in many ways, has created a vacuum in the world as we've backed away from the world stage. But the American people see is President Trump leaning into these relationships, bringing a healthy skepticism to all of it, particularly when it comes to Russia, but saying, look, if we could have a better relationship with Russia and with Putin, and not getting lost in the usual debates, but to say we're going to take an honest effort
Mr. Vice President,
to advance America's interests in the peace and security of the world.
So that's like Pence in his job as the Trump whisperer. Trump comes out and says this stuff, and then Pence comes out and tells us what he really meant. And I do have a feeling that is to some degree what Trump means. I mean, I do have this feeling that Trump feels that there is a relationship to be had. I think he's wrong about this, by the way, but fair enough. He's going to try to have a relationship with Putin and team up with him to take on ISIS. He's said this repeatedly again and again and again, and he is trying to set that up so that when he sits down, he won't be sitting down with a guy that he's called a murderer, even though Putin is a murderer. That is what Putin is. That's what he does. But, the moral equivalency it's nonsense. It's slandering America. America has never been that country ever. And remember, it's the left this is the stock and trade of the left. And Donald Trump has always been a man of the left. He's always been a Democrat, and he's sucked up that stuff. Let's go back. I ended last week by talking about seeing Donald Trump at the National Prayer Breakfast and how out of place he was and, kind of a fish out of water, and how he made that unfortunate comment about Arnold Schwarzenegger, which wasn't a bad comment in itself. It was merely the tone of it. But let's not forget what Obama did at the National Prayer Breakfast. I think it was just last year, when he said this he was talking about all the violence that was being committed in the name of Islam, which he didn't mention. No, he did mention it in this speech. I'm sorry. He was talking about all the violence that was being done in the name of Islam. And then he said this. This is cut 9.
The profound good, the strength, the tenacity, the compassion and love that can flow from all of our faiths, operating alongside those who seek to hijack religious for their own murderous ends. Humanity's been grappling with these questions throughout human history. And lest we get on our high horse and think this is unique to some other place, remember that during the Crusades and the Inquisition, people committed terrible deeds in the name of Christ. In our home country, slavery and Jim Crow all too often was justified in the name of Christ.
I mean, now listen, Obama took a lot of flack for that, and he deserved it, but he took it from the rebel press. He took it from us, the conservative press. My only objection, look, Obama deserved taking flack for those stupid comments of moral equivalency, of making a moral equivalency between America and its Islamic enemies. That's absurd. He deserved to take the flack. Trump is taking some flack for this. He deserves it too. The only difference, and I think it's a difference worth noting, is the tone of hysteria that is what the press is doing. It is what the press is all about. It is creating this atmosphere of hysteria and crisis. I mean, you read the front page of the New York Times at this point, it looks like we're, living in Nazi Germany. It really does. I've got to stop. I'm going to finish this thought on the other side, but I got to stop and say goodbye to folks at Facebook and YouTube. Come over to thedailywire.com and you can listen to the rest or subscribe and you can watch it and also be in the mailbag, which is uncomfortable, but you get all your questions answered.